Exploring the unknown, from conspiracies to mysteries, you are entering the conspiracy sector.
Well, welcome everyone to this very special program. I'm your host, Aubrey Batchelor. Sailing this amazing ship of knowledge with me is Chris Jacobs, and you are entering the conspiracy sector. As always, we hope you've been well since the last episode, and today we hope that we might make you extra well if you're not, because we're going to be talking about kind of toxins in food and how to become a little bit healthier. And as you can sound by my voice, maybe I could use some of the information that we're going to be talking about today. Because I have literally been sick once a month this last half year. And I don't know if anybody out there, any of our listeners, Chris, I know you've been sick more often too after our talks.
Mm-hmm.
I know for a fact that I've been sicker than I've ever been in my entire life. So I want everybody that listens to this show, if you feel like you've been sicker more frequently, things like this Daytona fog that was mysterious back in January that they were saying these fogs that are making people sick. And then, I'm a firm believer that COVID, since our topic today is how toxins in food, but, it kind of all correlates together. COVID-19, believe it changed our bodies biochemically. And now, whenever we get attacked by an illness, it's going to target something, the weakest point in our body. For me, it's my lungs. I smoke, at least I used to quite a bit. And, whatever. I believe that if you had COVID-19, it targeted the weakest point in your body. I believe that to make you more susceptible to illness.
Yeah, I had
And
that
then,
in 21, and I'm not trying to like upplay, the COVID nerd or anything, but yeah, it did suck. It was pretty bad. It did go after the lungs. I was coughing like crazy and everything, and it fundamentally, and also the shedding from the vaccines are part of this as well, where I literally fundamentally felt different, like Humpty Dumpty wasn't put back together correctly again.
mm-hmm.
I think like super glued parts were put upside down and stuff like that. That's really what it felt like. If that's descriptive enough to people, if anybody else had that feeling around that time frame, let us know. But it made us also made there was also a susceptibility to certain chemicals and foods, like what we're going to talk about here. Yeah, I found it even recently, like with the processed foods that are out there. I mean, these are like the not just the microwavable stuff, but the stuff you put in the oven too. Like it comes in the foil package. You have like those Stouffer's microwavable and oven things and stuff like that. I can't touch them anymore. My system completely rejects it. The with all the chemicals that are in it, completely rejects it. Can't do it. Even the bags of fries and onion rings stuff, can't touch it. It has to be something you've made, like you've bought the vegetable or the fruit or the meat or somewhere from a reputable place, and
Mm-hmm. Like a homemade meal.
like a homemade meal. If it's anything but, my system kicks it back. I've noticed.
Then you're eating cleaner and proper as far as I'm concerned. But I really want everybody to comment if they feel like they've been sick more often and why they think so. And Chris and I, like he's saying, I believe a lot of it is our diets. It's our foods lowering our natural immunity, making us weaker, sicker, more so over a longer period of time. But why is that, Chris? Why is that? Corporate greed.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, people like Kellogg's and let's put bright colors on it so the kids annoy their parents to where they have to buy it and it looks fun.
Like the
Eh,
red dye, my mother's allergic to the red dye, whatever the number is at the end
Red
of.
40.
Yeah.
Hey, I like how now too, after Bobby Kennedy Jr., Mr. New Health Man, all these companies are running to change their recipes already. It really is bad. It's gonna be one of those things we didn't know. We didn't know. Minus all the food science that they're doing, to manipulate and make people addicted to this crap. I'm addicted to Takis. I can tell you that right away. I can eat a whole fucking bag of those in one sitting. And
Hmm.
I know there's food science going into it by these corporations too. Like cornflakes. Cornflakes without salt, everybody says tastes like fucking metal. Why is that? Because there's
Because
heavy
there's
metals
chemicals
in
in
them.
it that taste like metal. So it's like people that got the vax, for instance, they smelled like wet metal. So there's obviously some chemical
But there's fun games on the box that I can play while I eat it.
there. Like a maze that you're now too stupid to do on the back of the box because you have a bunch of chemicals in your system. You have brain fog, so you can't do the maze on the back.
It's such corporate crap. I can't stand it. I try not to support them as much as that. It's kind of hard not to, especially in today's world. I'm not sounding. I said I hate. This sounds very naive. I hate it when people say it, and I hate it when I say it myself. That classic expression of it's more expensive to eat healthier. In a way, it is when it comes to like organic meats and things like that.
Yeah.
But hey, last time I checked, a bag of apples is probably the same price, if not lower than a bag of chips. So why choose the chips?
Yeah,
Because they
exactly.
taste better and they've been designed to fucking goddamn. It just, I just hate these food corporations so much because they're getting away with it. The original tobacco companies smoke 2 packs a day. You'll be fine. You'll be the healthiest person on earth. And then the tobacco companies now own some of the food companies later on, 80
Hmm.
years down the line. They're all
And I
connected.
think Coca-Cola is one of the worst offenders because you have during when I was sick with COVID, we were drinking Diet Coke pretty heavily back in that time in 21. This is what got me off of it, and I know Spirit was involved somewhere as a synchronicity in this because I cracked open a bottle of Diet Coke when I was really, I mean, really sick. I looked like a skeleton, so it was like in my face and everything. I was really pale and everything. I cracked open this immediately went. I'm like, what? Did this come out of a toilet or a porta john somewhere? And I asked Joanna, I said, does this go bad or something? This is like mixed between a liquefied corpse and diarrhea. I don't know what the hell. And other people were making the comments about sauces and stuff. If you watch the Y-Files, he called A1 corpse sauce during COVID. So it was like, he said he can't touch it anymore, even though it was his favorite, because he remembers the taste. I remember the taste of Diet Coke during that time. I haven't touched a single one since the end of 2021 because that got me off of it. If anything, it was so gross. I couldn't even describe it, but my brain remembers that flavor. And I went back and
Hey, yeah.
a little later, like when I was perfectly okay, and I still tasted the chemicals in it, which told me that when I drifted away from it, my palate got immunized to, not
And
immunized, but got.
that's another form of biochemically changing your taste buds.
Yeah, and COVID did that to where the taste buds changed. But at the same time, after when they normalized, as normal as it could be, I tasted Coke and Pepsi again just to see if it was the same. I was curious if it was the same or not. Tasted raw chemicals out of them completely. I got hypersensitive taste buds thanks to that. I always had hypersensitive nose, but the taste buds really kicked into high gear. And the fact that I'd been away from those sodas for so long, the taste buds automatically were tasting the chemicals. And I'm thinking, oh, those are still gross. Ugh, I'm not touching that anymore. But my brain remembered that corpse diarrhea fusion taste that was in it from before. And I'm like, no. So it was, if I could describe it any better than that, I can't. That it was so disgusting, even the smell at the time. I'm like, okay, somebody emptied a sewage pipe and a mortuary by corpses that.
Somebody put a fish market next to a sewage treatment facility.
That's essentially what it was. And I had to dump the bottle out. I'm like, this is disgusting. And I was tasting the chemicals though, but all that other was on top of it. I'm like, no, never again at this point. And that's that.
We're kind of all digressing on a comedic tangent right now, but you'd mentioned Porto Johns. We were just talking. Look at the company names of these porto potties. I came across when everybody can remember the names of these Porto Johns. I was talking about the porta potties. One that I like is Al's Johns.
Well, people, to a sidetrack a little bit, the toilet was actually named by a guy with the last name Crapper. So I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. But that is actually, you got looked that history up. The guy that invented the toilet, his name was Crapper, and that's where they get the word crap.
And I want to know what Webster Dictionary is trying to think with all the different names for a poop. There's poop, poo, crap, shit, feces.
Uh,
Who
I
the
know.
hell? Who the hell created that word and all its different?
Hmm.
Maybe
Yeah.
it's not Mr. Hanky.
Oh yeah, yeah. To sidetrack a little bit, yeah. You want to see one of the creepiest characters South Park ever created? That's mixed.
Hey, but to be honest, though, if you eat all this bad food like South Park's saying, this bad toxic food like we're talking about, if you if you went diarrhea for a week straight,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like if you like, I noticed from the processed food, that's what happens. Now, if your poo forms Mr. Hanky and it talks back to you, I think you ate the wrong thing. But
we'll
it's
see. I
uh,
think out of sacrifice, I'm gonna eat KFC every meal for a week straight.
yeah, yeah. If you want to sacrifice your bowels, that would be the way to do it. But
My hypothesis is I have extreme bad uncontrollable diarrhea.
uh, yeah, this is where we are basically 3-year-olds at the moment. We're laughing at poop at the moment. So this is,
Yeah.
but
Hey, but it all originates back to, the way that the world is, I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, it originates all back, and I hear Isaac saying, "Oh yeah, it's like that song they did in South Park. It was like the circle of life, and it all returns to poo." Yeah, but this is the we joke about this, but yeah, this has gotten to a point where it's hit critical mass to where when if you're feeling ill by just eating, anything that's in your house that you bought, it's time to actually make the switch over because
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it.
one of the most powerful things that you guys can do is buy a juicer. Like trade that morning, breakfast, whatever you're doing. You can make a breakfast smoothie. That's fine too. I make bulletproof coffee every day, which, I wish we had time to dive into recipes and everything, but sometime the health field and we're talking about toxins. It's just so massive, both of them. It's like the poison and the cure, but they're both the same field. There's all these toxins in foods and
Mhm.
those foods, and then all these healthy foods. And then there's a lot of stuff in between there too. Essential oils, supplements. Supplements are good and bad, and companies
There's
lie with those.
oils in the supplements too. I notice whoever constructs them. Also, there's another thing that the government is doing that, like with marijuana and CBD, they're making it so it's overly toxified so that they can come back and regulate it too. This is something that's happening as well. This is where the darker side of this.
That sounds like a yeah.
Yeah.
How exactly though? So they want to uh, make it more potent, so then the federal government can come in and
Yeah, they make it more potent, therefore they can declare it more dangerous, so they can just crack the hammer down on it, is what they're doing.
oh,
And
okay.
it's essentially like saying this is an epidemic, so therefore we must crack down. It's the fireman and the arsonist routine, essentially, is what it is. I call their bullshit out because I've noticed people that sell CBD. We knew people that sold CBD, and I warned this person this was going to happen. This person had to diversify in business. If you're selling CBD, diversify and do other things too, because the government is going to attempt this fairly soon in the next few years, from what we understand.
Uh,
And so watch for this because I know there's good sides to pot and there's bad sides to pot, but somebody's laced it with something so they can come in and crack down on it later on. But with the things with the foods, there's positive stuff coming out of this to where the toxins are being removed. From what I get, but see this thing with the CBD. Watch for this bit of BS that you see on the news later on, because this is where they're going with marijuana. They're making it so ridiculously abundant and powerful that they're going to try to crack down on it again.
uh,
And with like people have CBD, the marijuana dispensaries and stores all over the place. Then they're going to come in and try to wipe the slate clean and bring order to chaos to order. And just watch for this at some point because this
uh,
is where this is going with the foods. However, no matter what the intentions of the federal government are with this, usually they're not always great, obviously, but there are people got to remember there are seeds of like white hat type people that are in places that want to get the ball rolling in a different area. The reason I brought up the CBD marijuana thing is because I don't want them doing it, and the more you talk about it, the more they won't do it. So it's like loose lips sink ships, and
mm,
that could sink that ship fairly quickly. But with the foods, yeah, I have especially with aspartame in diet sodas. That's basically another name for NutraSweet, and that is that and was it stevia? That one, stevia, saw it hurt my urinary tract. Aspartame hurt the GI tract, from what I saw. So, not that I've done experiments on myself, just whatever I happened to touch at the time, and I find out later it had this particular chemical in it. Um, And GMOs, genetically modified everything. Let me see what I got here. Yeah, let me see. I got, yeah, the GMOs, the genetically modified organisms, plants, animals, and microbes that whose DNA has been altered using genetic engineering techniques, often enhanced traits like pest resistance and higher yields. Yes, there is a lighter side to this. So this can be used for good. This definitely can be used for good because there's so many people on the planet. There's 8 billion people. Of course, you could use this for good. They could also bring out replicators and garbage reclamation technology, and we wouldn't have to. We could just use Star Trek reclamators, but that's a different story altogether. This is the next best thing if they would use it properly, but they're using it to integrate a toxin, genetically integrated strain into the foods. Then they add other chemicals into the foods later on after it's already out. What happens though in the body? There is this one thing I came to find out recently, and this goes back to the COVID and also vaccine conversation, because what happened when the vaccine was put in some people? They started to basically produce spike proteins. What happens if you introduce a certain chemical in the body? What does this do? Some of them are making people stupid.
Yeah.
Some of them are also making people stupid, fat, susceptible to viruses, susceptible to contaminants, contagions of all kinds. Also, there are also groups of people that also harvest different chemicals out of people that are produced by the combinations of different chemicals. Like I noticed when I looked into people's energy cores, I kept seeing this weird hand sanitizer like crap running through them, and it was from the GMO'd and chemically ridden foods and drinks. White sugar being the worst of the bunch. The refined white sugar, we all love it around Christmas time because especially cookies and all this other stuff. Which, yeah, but the white sugar, you want to make yourself stupid? That is the way to do it because, especially
Yeah.
if you work like I do, energy work. The worst thing you can do is get into the white.
And hey, not just that, all baked goods at stores, cans of soda, the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, they use the white
Candy
refined
bars.
sugar everywhere, and it's one of the worst toxins. It might as well be crack or heroin because that's essentially it's up in that upper echelon of narcotic level. I have a funny feeling that that refinement will be outlawed at some point, but brown sugar, I don't seem to have a problem with. Um,
Yeah.
but caffeine, I don't have seem to have a problem with if they haven't laced it with something else. So, like if somebody makes, we get in the Outer Banks, we get at a place called OBX Jerky, we get bags of these coffee beans that somebody locally home makes them, and they're chocolate covered coffee beans. Great for caffeine usage completely. Also, I always say with the chemicals going through people's bodies, it's like when they give the elephant those coffee beans, they poop it out and it ferments them. So
Yeah.
that talk about diarrhea. That's that doesn't dissuade you from drinking or eating certain things. But that coffee, they use the elephant as a go-between. And instead of using equipment to ferment it, which would take months, they just use the elephant's stomach and bowels, basically. But that's what the people in that area of Africa did. But at the same time, imagine other people out there wanting a particular chemical out of somebody or out of somewhere, but the only way they could produce it was through a human being. What would you do? You would lace things with chemicals, knowing people would eat it, and then you either get the chemical in the sewer system, which is like essentially like maritime law in the sewer system, where they could get anything they want, DNA and everything. Unlike some of those ancestry services you have, they get DNA from that. But with this, they also there are military units out there that actually extract DNA from people in their sleep. Essentially, that's where some of the alien abduction stuff comes in. Some of it's our own people doing this. And what they do is they take that chemical, that toxin in your system, and they're using it for something else. They figured they could use us as incubators. I found this out a while back that this activity was going on. And also these toxins, aside from anything like that, these toxins, gravity wise, will go down into your feet. And this will cause all sorts of problems with your feet because gravity will pull it all down into your feet and arches and toes and everything. And if people have all of a sudden their feet are swelling up, you don't know why. This is why. and I would use detox, like ionic detoxing, to get rid of the heavy metals.
Hmm.
Also, there's these Japanese pads that I get that we got from when we went to Japan.
Detox foot
Detox
pads.
foot pads. Yeah, use those regularly. Go use ionic detox. There's a friend of ours named Ida Farhat. She does ionic detox. If you're in the St. Augustine, Florida area, she does that as business. So I'll put all pertinent information below, but it's in the descriptor. But if you have a local person that does that, do it regularly because there's heavy metals. Zeolite gets rid of heavy metals as well. I've noticed zeolite powder. That's a volcanic ash that actually gets rid of that. Very good at doing that, especially in post-COVID era at the moment.
Hmm.
People have even nicknamed from 2020 to up to now the COVID era, and I don't particularly like they named it after a disease, but whatever. But uh, but yeah, if you have that weird, creepy feeling in your feet, like they feel like rubber or plastic or something, ground yourself, go outside, walk in nature barefoot for one. Use salt scrubs with Dead Sea salt and Himalayan salt for two. And three, detox, ionic detox are the pads. And so that seems to work incredibly well to purge a lot of this. It's we've had to do all of these things.
That's good techniques to use, and I think that they work excellent too. I've only ionized a couple of times, and I feel like it makes me feel better. And those foot pads, I got some, but I need to use them. I bought some here, or we got some here a while back, and just haven't tapped into them.
Yeah, they. I would use them. I know, like your brain forgets to do it. That's the toxins and the psionic dampening at work. That the combination of these two things are making people forget to use the good stuff and thinking that the toxins are convenient. This is, and I've mentioned this several times in other shows, but I'll mention this again. We were watching with Joanna's grandson. He wanted to watch SpongeBob. We're watching SpongeBob. And something told me to go to the second Nickelodeon channel. And I'm thinking, okay, number two. I'm like, they both had SpongeBob on them, one and two. I'm like, okay, I went to the second one. What happened? What's the plot? That basically plankton is making this serum that makes everybody stupid, and this chemical that makes everybody stupid, taking it from Patrick Starr's DNA, which is DNA derivative, like the mRNA type of thing. What happens is he spills it on himself, he becomes retarded, and then this chem cloud goes over Bikini Bottom and makes everybody retarded. And the way they make them not retarded anymore is Sally Squirrel indoctrinates them in the school education system to re-educate all of them. If that wasn't a bit of propaganda thrown in there, I don't know what is, but I saw this, and it was the whole like chem clouds, chemtrails, all the fog, all this other stuff. They were depicting it in the cartoon. And so,
Huh.
and I'm looking, going, well, I'll be damned. And intuitively, somebody guided me to that. And also, the reason the second one is the chemical introduction is actually the second method of introducing it to people, like chemtrails, chem clouds, chem fogs, the chemicals in foods, all this other stuff. Psionics and frequency is the other one, and that's technology, that's satellites, that's what we call the binary network or V2K technology. So that's all based in frequency. It's the same as if you would put a sound wave under a tray that had sand on it, and it would form different
Yeah, patterns and
patterns
yeah,
and
vibrational patterns.
yeah, and that's where sigils and stuff come from, kind of like this one that we use in the lifting here, this Merkaba.
Hell yeah.
And these are based in certain megahertz frequencies. Imagine those megahertz being flung at people constantly, bringing their immunity down, and then you get bombarded chemically from the other end of it. You could basically get it from both ends of the spectrum, and what happens? You're sick all the time. So that's essentially, you get the frequencies and you get the low vibrational food. Boom! It's a recipe for disaster right there.
Yeah,
So
and look how many people that's affecting.
Yeah, so the psionics, even though the 5G goes all over the place and everything, just make sure to go out in nature more. And that tends to nail a lot of that, being around trees, being around like barefoot on the sand, grass, beach, salt water, all these things tends to do that. The chemical side of it, though, it's basically watch what you put in your face.
Yeah.
So that's basically it right there. We've run into so much lately. I know, Aubrey, you had some things you wanted to say on your that you were reading off of a website.
Well, you're kind of picking up, I'll pick up after what you laid down there.
Hmm.
Let me go to share screen here. I just wanted to talk about this real quick. This is the rise in meat consumption over the last 50 years. And to sum it all up, basically everything poultry, pig meat, beef, sheep and goat, and other meats have all risen to be twice the amount or more in the
Hmm.
last 50 years. So, to sum it up, the meat consumption is on the rise, and I believe not just meat consumption, but look, there's more population now. So if the meat consumption's gone up and the population has gone up, or the meat consumption has doubled and the population's probably about doubled, that's a lot of meat. Just think of all the slaughterhouses and everything, and all the animals getting killed on a daily basis. It's crazy. Uh,
Yes, I've noticed some
but
antibiotics and all that they put in pigs, cows, and all of that. Yeah, there's a lot of toxins in meat that we've tried to clear a lot of them, like with our devices and with energy work and all this other stuff. And we haven't completely been able to do it. I mean, I can clear the energies of things, but if it's had a chemical incorporated into it, it's fairly difficult to correct it. Even with blessed things, you can bless things all you want. You still have to just eat things that don't have it in it, you know?
yeah, and speaking of blessing things, we came across I don't know if this will make you healthy, but it was called Sacred Seltzer, and supposedly it's alcoholic seltzer made with holy water that's blessed by priests.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I haven't heard of
uh,
it. Yeah.
not giving them a free plug or anything, so hopefully our listeners don't go buy them all out. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that we came across that here a couple of days ago, and I was
I may
like,
have to try that just to see what the hell's in it. No,
yeah, I thought it'd be kind of out of curiosity a little bit, It's
out
sort
of
of
curiosity, it's like a fork and light. It's probably going to be a fork and light socket moment, but
my sins are washed away with the holy water.
washes your sins away. But you have a nanovirus. Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Like one of my lungs.
uh, but also here's another thing. We were drinking. I would drink energy drinks for the longest time, and you guys saw on a past conspiracy sector where Isaac was saying, "Get him off the energy drinks." You know, they have a nano bug in them. You know, that kind of thing. Well, what ended up happening, and people can believe this or not, but what happened just before we went to the conference in 2024? The Full Disclosure Now conference. FullDisclosureMovement.org is where you can get for 2025. But the one before we went there, we had a military group hit us with an energy weapon or a microwave weapon. We even saw a tree outside that got burned by this thing.
Huh.
There was evidence left behind, physical evidence left behind this happened. And before that, I was drinking energy drinks that I felt these little pinpricks all over my face, and this was from nano tech garbage that was in those. Combination of this was when I got hit with this, I ended up getting the shingles after a bunch of nano garbage purged from my left eye here. If you're wondering why my eye droops now, when you see me where it kind of slants off this way, there was some nerve damage from a bunch of crud that came out the eye here, and it was all these nanoparticles. It looked like sand, black and gray sand.
Hmm.
Thought. And it was like this big snot ball that came out the eye. I felt great after that was out of my head. I felt wonderful, and then I got the shingles from it really horribly bad. And it encompassed this eye, it encompassed here. I looked like a Neanderthal. And on July 4th last year, I woke up looking like a Neanderthal or somebody that got hit. I felt horrible, and I had to unfortunately do pharmaceuticals to get rid of part of that.
Oh yeah.
The rest of it was natural stuff that I was going after with it. I heard oregano's good for lungs and stuff like that. I was good.
Yeah, I use oregano oil, and that's what I was going to pick up on earlier whenever you were talking about stuff to incorporate. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's one of my faves, oregano and vitamin C, which right after we're done with the show, guess what I'm doing?
Yeah, exactly. Those are good. I tried ashwagandha, and
Yeah,
that
I put
really.
that in my coffee every morning. That goes in my bulletproof coffee.
Oh yeah, ashwagandha is great, but Also, if you had GI issues on top of, of other things, ashwagandha can be a gut ripper if the dose is too high.
Yeah.
I mean, you feel like you've eaten glass.
The gut ripper that I found, I still got a package of it that you gave me from when you moved the first time to Arizona. It's just that potent that I can't use a lot of it.
Oh,
Uh,
that bark that I
yep, the cinchona bark or whatever.
It was
That's
good, but you get the shakes if you do too much of that stuff.
yeah. That I still literally you gave me a package that's about a foot long. There's probably still about 8 or 9 inches of it. I only put like literally a
Mhm.
sprinkle, like
The
just
bark,
a
the
pinch.
people, you use that, you're going to go into seizure fits if you use too much of that stuff.
Yeah, it's freaky.
It's freaky, but if you do things in moderation, like ashwagandha, I have this green stuff that I get from Roundhouse Provisions, the Chuck Norris company, and it's good. The morning kick stuff is good, but I notice if I do certain things, it has ashwagandha in it. I do too many things in a row, it might gut rip. There's also another one I've used called was Amaranta. That's the berserker mushroom. If people that goes into psychedelics category. If the dosage is too high, not only will you start to see colors around everything, but you're high as a freaking kite. So it's your gut feels wonderful. So that will help. But I have to be somewhere around 200 milligrams for something like that. I was taking pills that were 500, and I took it when I decided okay, I'm going to take them every day because I do sessions every day, and I need that. By the time from Monday, when Friday came around, I was high as a kite. And so accumulates. So if you do something like that, you have to judge that based on body weight and how sensitive you are to things. But the amaranth, they call it the berserker mushroom. There is a toxin level in there if you get too high because the Vikings used it in the day back in the day and age to increase their eyesight and their mental capability before battles. And also, there were two ways they did it. They would eat it outright, and another way is they would ferment it through reindeer. This is where you get Santa Claus and the reindeer thing from, and they would ferment it in the reindeer poop, and they would just eat the poop. I found out you can thank my friend
Yeah.
Ryan for coming up with that bit of information. Even though the thing with Santa
Oh,
and
gather up the reindeer shit. We're gonna make coffee.
basically, even though the reindeer thing came from Odin and his eight-legged horse, that's Santa and the reindeer of for Christmas. But the other part of the story is the basically the reindeer poop with the mushroom in it. So it outright too. I found out both things. So, but that's a little bit of basically Middle Ages history right there. But with that mushroom, if you were eating chunks like
Just
this.
shows you how desperate humans are to get high.
Yeah, but the Vikings used it to increase their precision, their the way they could think easier and see like a cat in the dark kind of thing, and it will do that. It does assist with like if you do sessions like mine, or if you need to get something done during the day. If you go too high with that, you won't get shit done during the day. So it's like you'll be sitting there going for like a couple of hours. So you don't want to do too
Mhm.
high of that. But then you'll start to see colors on the edges of the trees where their auric field is and stuff like that. So it's like that scene in True Blood where the one brother sees like the trees all glowing and that is actually true for the
Mhm.
berserker mushroom if you
Jason,
go too high. I can
it's one of
personally
my
attest
favorite
to that.
shows.
Yeah, and people here will be surprised. He did mushrooms? Yes, he did mushrooms. So, but had to find things that would not hurt my gut. Say so, and then get
Uh,
it sharp. And apparently, I had to be the alchemist experimenting on myself. So,
that's all right.
yeah,
That's where you discover things.
yeah, and it was weird. I mean, and also if you're attached to anything emotionally, and you have something you haven't worked through, Amaranta, the berserker mushroom, will throw you for a loop. So, it'll throw you for a loop emotionally, and you'll be like tweaking for a while. So it's like,
Tweaker.
but yeah, I only recommend that for people that have an iron constitution. So. That, yeah, and also some of our devices, like the high magnetic ones, will do kind of the same way. If you have a timeline you're not supposed to be connected to spiritually or mentally or an entanglement, the Shungite devices will let you know too. Just so people know that. But health wise, yeah, that we've been. This is what we've been through personally with a lot of these things. I've tried a lot of these different supplements, a lot of these different things, and I've seen pros and cons in all of them. And like some of them will, yeah, they'll clear bacteria from your teeth, but then you get thrush because you take away everything. It's like with mouthwashes, things of that nature. And the best ones you can find are usually some of the harder to find things. I'll put links to all of it in the descriptor of like stuff we've talked about, but
Yeah.
so I personally have used. So if Aubrey, you want to add anything to that? But do you have any
Well,
information, Aubrey, that we can?
yeah, I want to share one more thing, but that's all great information as well. And everybody kind of, like you're saying, you kind of got to figure out what you doesn't work for you and what does work for you, because certain people are sensitive to certain things.
Mm-hmm. Most,
Uh,
and you might be
even even
oversensitive.
in the health field.
You might be oversensitive, but it doesn't mean that it's not working too. You got to remember that as well.
Yeah, true, true. But I just wanted to talk about this article from WWW at the University of Alabama, actually, of Birmingham. Uh, it's about the effects of the American diet on health. And when was this article? I don't even know. But through the potential for weight gain and cardiovascular disease are common known results of an unhealthy diet. The general public often does not realize that their diet can also adversely affect their aspects of health, even mental health. Additionally, the extent to which the American diet affects society as a whole brings the issue to a greater public importance. Additionally, the dietary guidelines for Americans states that the average American diet consists of excess sodium, saturated fat, refined grains, and calories from solid fats and added sugars. Furthermore, the guidelines state that the Americans eat less vegetables, fruits, whole grains, dairy products, and oils than recommended. Almost 35% of adults in the U.S. are obese, and it is estimated that this statistic will increase to almost 50% within 15 years. Some of the blame has been placed on fast food chains, which tend to serve foods high in calories, fats, sugars, and sodium, and low in vitamins and minerals. While these restaurants may contribute to the poor diet of the average American, they are not the sole cause. Stepping into any American grocery store will make it abundantly clear why the American diet is severely lacking. Nutritious foods like fresh fruits, vegetables, and lean meats are often more expensive than packaged foods. Packaged foods tend to contain higher amounts of sodium, refried grains, sugar, and unhealthy oils than recommended by the dietary guidelines for Americans. And that's a joke too, the DGA, Dietary Guidelines for Americans.
Mhm.
There are also more options when it comes to packaged foods, and the food pyramid's a joke. Whole aisles are dedicated to chips alone, while healthier options are limited to smaller selection of the store, and that's true. Look at that big long chip aisle, and just one little section of fruit. Poor diet is predominantly associated with weight gain and obesity. However, the harmful effects do not end there. Animal and human studies indicate that an unhealthy diet can contribute to the development of many diseases like cardiovascular disease and cancer, and it even can affect the brain. In animal models, animals that are fed some type of high fat, sugar, and diet, referred to as a Western diet or high fat sucrose (HFS) diet, to stimulate the diet that a typical American consumes. For human studies, the participants often fill out questionnaires about their eating habits and then are placed in groups based on their answers. As expected, studies in mice and rats show that these following a Western diet tend to gain more weight than those eating standard chow. Although to the extent of the difference between groups varies between studies, however, the variance could be caused by biological differences between mice and rats. Additionally, these studies administered diets with different fat and sugar compositions that provided varying accesses to running wheels for exercise. In addition to weight gain, a Western diet also results in impaired cardiac function in mice, as indicated by changes in contraction and relaxation of the heart. A Western diet has also been shown to elevate fasting insulin levels in rats and lower insulin sensitivity. This result suggests that the rats on a Western diet were developing insulin resistance, which is a precursor to type 2 diabetes. Although these studies were conducted using rodents rather than humans, it is important to consider the findings since cardiovascular disease is leading cause of death in the U.S., and 9% of the population has diabetes. Another health concern that is associated with diet is asthma. About 8% of U.S. adults have asthma. In 2013, over 3,600 people died from asthma. Probably me right now. A study by Brigham and colleagues, by Brigham and colleagues, shows that Western diet worsens the severity of asthma, but does not have a role in causing it. Interestingly, studies have shown that unhealthy diets affect the brain as well as the body. Diets high in saturated fats and refined carbs are associated with greater incidences of depression, depressive symptoms, and anxiety. In older adults, an unhealthy diet is associated with a smaller left hippocampus, a brain structure associated with learning, memory, and mood regulation, and is thought to play a role in depression. A study in rats showed that the longer a rat consumed a diet high in fat and sugar, the greater the effect in hippocampal function and brain plasticity, resulting in impaired learning and memory. This study showed that even short-term consumption of such a diet results in cognitive impairment in rats. Further evidence of the impact on diet of the brain is provided by studies of diet-induced obesity and Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is characterized by clumps of a protein called exulinin in the brain. Rotermund et al. Have shown that in mice, diet-induced obesity can increase the risk of developing these protein clumps. The study used a mouse model of Parkinson's disease, which the mice were genetically predisposed to develop synuclein clumps. The mice with diet-induced obesity exhibited accelerated age of onset protein clumps in the brainstem, onset of lethal locomotor symptoms, and onset of neurodegeneration. Clearly, diet is incredibly important and can affect more than just physical size and weight. It can even affect mental health. Eating a diet high in fat and sugar, which many Americans do, can contribute to cardiac dysfunction, decrease insulin sensitivity, and worsen symptoms of asthma. Additionally, such a diet associated with greater incidence of depression and depressive symptoms, impaired learning and memory, and a greater risk of developing asynuclein clumps, which are a hallmark of Parkinson's disease. In a day and age which time is becoming increasingly precious, it is important to acknowledge that what is convenient is not always the best, and that diet choices have far-reaching effects on health. Making small changes like choosing a whole grain bread over white bread, and that's true too, is the first step toward lowering your risk of various health problems and leading a healthier, happier life. And that's why I wanted to use this example. You know, even if the bread ain't organic, unless if you're gluten free, choose the whole grain bread, bleach flour, and I just want to continue over to this real quick, and I'm just going to sum this one up.
Okay.
The top 10 worst foods to eat. And like I said, I wanted to share this one because the one I just got done reading, because it really it combines physical and mental health, and look at everybody's mental and physical health. And then you can also say that affects your spiritual health and emotional health and everything along that line.
Most definitely.
These are the top 10 worst foods from everydayhealth.com. And I'm just going to sum them up. Number one, processed meats like bacon, hot dogs, and cold cuts. We've all very well heard about that. And anybody can go to this. It's a pretty good reference guide here, to this article. Number two is sodas, like we talked about. Useless sugar, useless calories. If it's real good farm bacon and farm meats, like I said, I grew up on a ranch and everything, and you got amazing meats. But this deli cut processed bucket.
Yes, yeah. You brought it to us once. Sorry to interrupt, but you brought it to us once, and it was the best beef sausage I ever had. So.
Hell yeah! I'm glad you liked it. I'll have to try to bring you some more. And what did we just get done talking about?
That was the breads and the grains.
White bread, and hey. Bleached flour. Nobody buy that bleached flour bull crap. They gas that flour to make it that color.
Mm-hmm.
After I learned that, yeah, I've maybe bought white flour twice in the last, I don't know, number of years. French fries, and it's usually unbleached white flour. Fast food burgers. I actually think these fast food burgers are probably the healthiest unhealthy thing on this list.
Yeah, exactly. They're the healthiest unhealthy thing. I would take one of those burgers over.
Any of this shit,
Yeah, I think this other shit that's on
I
here.
can tell you these donuts, whenever I eat one, I feel like a fat ass tub of lard. My stomach feels all shitty, just one of them. Then I end up eating two or three.
Yeah, like Krispy Kreme, those are like crack. So yeah, you're
And
out that's in it. So yeah.
one of my favorite ones to talk about, and everybody can do this at home. I'm just not liable if you accidentally burn yourself. I already told you. Take your classic American cheese, like Kraft singles, and hold it up, open it up, and take a lighter to it. It will not melt. You hold a lighter to it, it will not melt. It will burn like a piece
Because
of
it's not
plastic.
cheese. That's why it's some
Yep.
other weird
It's a
derivative.
cheese. Hey, should we be appropriate about our vernacular here? Is it a cheese product or a product?
It's a
Product or product?
product. Yeah, it's
Okay, it's a cheese product. It's not real cheese.
or
Uh,
it's basically a cheese facsimile is what it is. Yeah.
but seriously, if you have these in your fridge at home, most people do. For something, burgers, grilled cheese. They do make an amazing grilled cheese. I'll give you that, but I still use grilled cheese. Uh, but everybody prefers these. They really do. A lot of people prefer this cheese. But do the lighter test to it. Everybody has it. Take a lighter test to it. And number 8 shouldn't be a surprise. Potato chips. And there's this local commercial going around right now. About I think drinking and driving. Whenever I'm drinking, hey, how about some beer and some more chips? Sometimes when it comes to food, I don't make the best food choices. It's something like that. And he's like, hey, how about a beer and some more chips? And then, so it's like our show right here. It's all about he's eating horribly unhealthy, and then he discovers something, and he's healthy.
Exactly.
All in one radio commercial. It's amazing how that happened.
Kraft American, I mean Kraft, the macaroni and cheese. That's also that you want a gut ripper. That's
Yeah.
the singles Kraft, singles cheese. I'm always reminded of that Simpsons episode where he sat up all night eating slices of American cheese. Where he's like R1, R2, and then it goes 63, 64. Yeah, so I'm always reminded.
Slowing down.
Yeah, and he's gagging by the end of it. So yeah, I always thought that was hilarious, personally. But yeah, the macaroni and cheese, that is some of the biggest gut ripping I've ever had. There's a place here called Wegmans we can get our donuts from, and they don't gut rip. They don't gut rip at Wegmans. Walmart, they'll gut rip. Here, no. I mean, there's this Wegmans. If you have one near you. It's actually a good place. I'm not promoting sugar-laced anything, just they have better cheeses and better all of that. So,
And number 9, processed snack foods, which is in everybody's cabinet and pantry.
oh yeah, we have some of that crap ourselves. Sorry, something got in my eye while I was sitting here. But what ended up happening is we got rid of like 9/10 of whatever we have in there. My family, still eats some of the processed stuff and still eats some of the candy. It's just this is important, folks, and I have to follow this as well. Now that I've said it, and I'm going to say it. Is even if a family member is bringing it home, you have to stay away from it and make those individual choices for yourself, essentially, because it's tempting, if something's sitting there like a Twix bar or a or something like that. I mean, I'm probably one of the biggest hypocrites when it comes to this kind of stuff. The thing that is, I didn't get 320 plus pounds for nothing, so so yeah. At the time of this recording.
You're a big boy.
Yeah, at the time of this recording, that's about where I'm at. So, and if you saw me in high school, I was like sumo wrestler looking back then. I was like I mean, big, like no neck. That's how I looked then, and I looked like I belonged in Japanese sumo wrestling. But ironically, when we were there, I want to talk about that. When we were in Japan back in 19, when I went there, I still had the same stomach issues, from here. Went there. I mean, I had a bad time the first day I was there, but we were there for 3 weeks in the beginning of it was like April of 2019. And I was perfectly fine by the time we had to leave. My system, I was losing weight. I was getting healthier. And I talked to a Japanese man while I was there, and I said, your food seems much healthier. And he goes, yeah, because we don't poison our food or fluoridate our water. And I asked the stupid question, why not? I said, like, he goes, because it's evil. That's why. So say what you want about Japan, they're a socialist nation, but they did their food right. So you could go in anywhere, eat any junk food that you found anywhere in a 7-Eleven. They had like these rice wraps. They had amasubi in places, which is rice ball, and you could go into a 7-Eleven, you could go into a McDonald's over there, which you wouldn't expect this, and they had a totally different menu from like sushi rolls to fish, different like fish sandwiches there, and you didn't find a single Big Mac or French fry among them there.
Hmm.
Because Japanese didn't start getting fat, other than sumo wrestling, by the way, which they're healthy. They eat a bunch of healthy food and they eat at night. That's how they get big like that, and it's all muscle and fat together. But Japan didn't start getting really fat until McDonald's was introduced. I mean, unhealthy fat. But people always say, well, they got the fattest people on the planet, which is sumo wrestler. But that is because they attune the body for that particular art form. So
Mm-hmm.
martial art form, and they are actually perfectly healthy, even though they don't look it. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I went over there, and those people stretch all the time. They exercise all the time. We watch them like they even have in parks. They have these like stretching rods where you can
That's
actually.
weird how big they are, how flexible they are.
Yeah, that's where they're getting all the flexibility from because they're constantly stretching time. And they walk everywhere. I mean, if you got into traffic in their cars, it would be a nightmare. But if you walk everywhere, which is mostly what they do, they're an island nation. They practically walk all over the place, especially in Tokyo. You don't you see traffic like you would here, but it's not the same. You see mainly people walking around, and that's what I can praise Japan for because they knew how to make fresh food. Their sushi was awesome. I had some here at a Chinese buffet one time. I got two tapeworms from our version of it, and
Uh,
I didn't realize real ones, not like etheric ones. These were actual tapeworms. So baking soda will get rid of them if you manage to get one of those. You have to down a lot of it, but you will kill the tapeworm with that. Ivermectin will do the other one, but it's I didn't have that at the time, so I downed a bunch of baking soda, which is gross, trust me, but it worked. And when I realized I had a parasite, you didn't lose weight from it either. It actually went off the bad chemicals in the body, and it made me feel weaker. So it didn't. It's not like it actually made me thinner. That's a misconception with tapeworms. I've had two of them, and each one, and it took me a couple times to put two and two together. I had it from a Chinese buffet that we went to local in Phoenix at the time, and it took me. It was like everything was seemed fresh, but here we don't have the same standards. They look for little cysts and eggs and parasites over there. Very meticulous over there when it comes to cleanliness and food. That's why they do the thing with the shoes too over there. But
yeah.
that's also energetically, but they also don't like dirt in places. They're extremely,
Yeah.
but it works in their favor. Here, they might want to learn from Japan when it comes to
Well, yeah.
fish and meat and all that other stuff. So that's where I'm at with that. It was like 3 weeks. I was fine. It wasn't even a month later, and I was fine. So I came back here. I was deathly ill when I started eating our food here. And also, one more point I will make: there was a lady I read that lived in Mexico. And she came up here just across the border in Texas. And she went to a Mexican restaurant in Texas. One of, I think it was either Chili's, Chi-Chi's, or like something of that nature. And
Mm-hmm.
she went there. She had to be put in the hospital. And because the food, it was that bad, and they couldn't, she's like, what the hell happened to me? And she ate the exact same ingredients she would have in Mexico. She went back home. She was perfectly fine. She goes, you guys complain about our water. Our water has nothing on your food.
Mm.
So, and they have sewage pipes, supposedly. That's a stereotype in some areas, but they have sewage pipes next to the water pipes. That's the stereotype surrounding that. But she says, nah, we are fine. You guys have the problem. It's like, yeah. And yeah, did somebody I read about 2, 3 years ago, and yeah, she said that was what her experience was coming to the United States and eating food. She was like, "What happened?" And they had to put her in the hospital because it was the food she ate. And we
Nuts.
have an easier time because we're around it all the time. But you know, because you do become immune to and sense blind to a lot of stuff happening as well. It can be a good thing, but also a very bad thing too. But
Hmm.
like if you don't smell like gas in your house, how are you going to know it's poisoning you, kind of thing. You become blind after a while. The object
Hmm.
is to, yes, adapt, but don't become blind to a toxin in your system either. So, no, Aubrey, I think we're up to the point where we can get to the channel portion of this here.
Yeah.
And I'm being pestered here, so let me see. Hang on, there's something hates us doing this conversation. I know that much. So comparing all of these things together, I kept getting little hands around my voice box here. Somebody's trying to screw with me here. I felt little grip right there on my throat, like little fingers is doing that, and it's creepy because I feel all that, or if somebody messes with my hair or something, or flicks a hat or something like that. But I felt little hands on the vocals when I was trying to talk. So I'm going to get rid of
Telling
them.
you to shut up.
Yeah, somebody wants me to shut up, so which I don't do. So all I saw sight-wise, if people are curious, is a stringy little set of hands moving like this and touching the throat. That's really all visually I could see. But because I see into certain layers and frequencies that some people haven't attuned to, but visually that's what I'm looking at. The brain's obviously not decoding it correctly, but it's not translating it right. But hands, you can tell what hands are. So yeah, no matter what that is, you can tell what hands are when they have that shape. So, or a weapon or something like that. So okay. Okay, there is a being that wanted to come through today. This isn't going to be Isaac this time. This is actually one of the
Hmm.
forest people that wanted to talk today.
Okay.
I met him back last year when we went to Spirit Lake. That's outside of Wilmington, North Carolina. And a man by the name of Chad Wagner heads Spirit Lake. And the forest people are incredibly active there. I mean,
Hmm.
if you want a Sasquatch experience where you'll get them in photographs, don't actually go there and bug them with cameras and stuff, folks. But always feel like you get permission to do this first. But you will feel their presence there very strongly. So out there at Spirit Lake. So uh, and I'll put all pertinent information in the descriptor for that. But the head one that I ran, all Sasquatch tribes have a chieftain notice, like a tribal head, and or like how the Native Americans had it or have it. So and I believe that's who taught them how to do that. But this one, his name is Segron, and he is an extremely old, like 20,000
Agron?
plus, like a Nakam lineage one. The forest people that exist now are the descendants of a lot of these different other ones that you hear about in mythology. So, like we descend from ETs that colonized Earth and created colonies, like in the movie 65. This is
Hmm.
similar, but for the forest people.
I like that movie.
Yeah,
Hmm.
65 is accurate because they show that we came from elsewhere and didn't evolve here. That was the main premise of the movie.
Hmm.
And that's very true. That's why we get burnt by the sun. That's why we're allergic to certain things naturally, and that's why bee stings hurt us sometimes because we didn't evolve here. So that's basically the premise. If something here is really could kill you, like the sun could scorch you, to death, all this other stuff. That is also bee sting could kill somebody, spider bite could kill you. That is a main. That is basically a red flag. They're saying, "Hey, dummy, you didn't evolve here."
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so
Mars.
yeah, Mars. Some people have the circadian rhythms of Mars and not Earth too. So if you time it by Mars's yearly orbit versus Earth, And by the length of their day, some people have a circadian rhythm that goes with Mars and not Earth. So that proves there were people there. There was a whole civilization there at one point, and there was a disaster that took place there. So
Hmm.
some remote viewers that have seen it and even have contacted the beings as that is taking place. Because when channeling, you don't always know what time frame the being is speaking from. So that and remote viewing, you can remote temporal coordinates and time coordinates the same way you can basically latitude, longitude. It's a latitude, longitude of the universe, multiverse, omniverse, super omniverse, all that.
Mm-hmm.
So everything has a set of coordinates. So, like in Sliders, the show Sliders, all the universes had a coordinate number. So, and Marvel, they all have, like, our universe is 616. There's a bunch of other universes in timeline. They don't catalog them as far as I know, unless somebody in some other universe does it. But I'm getting off track. Second, let's see. Okay, let me add. Okay, Saigon, benevolent, Saigon. Okay, true benevolent. True benevolence. No, goodness. Okay. Hmm. Yes, I'm Segron. I have been on this earth a long, long time, and I've seen empires come and go. I have seen my own people form their own tribal communities, their own independent thought, and your own as well, our cousins. But uh, I have not seen, except for one other time in history, where a community or a governmental body has poisoned their own people. Actually, two other times. There was one in ancient Egypt, and there was one in ancient Rome. Isaac would know about this one because it was around the time of the Peloponnesian Wars, where the crowds were getting poisoned by the government through the food, the same as here. Your own government takes a page from that history. Egypt was another one where slaves were given a bread-like material that made them drunk all the time, so they would not insurrect against their slavery. In this instance, you have a virus going around that makes fat cells replicate. This was created in a laboratory. And you have your poisons in the foods, and you have the GMO, the genetically modified organisms. Now, other worlds and other areas of the galaxy, you have the Orions that did this, where they would create a disease just to create the cure. The same goes with the poisoning. But there's self-farming going on here, where humans are creating a 9/10 of all of this based upon a pattern that their ancestors, this is an important distinction, that their ancestors were taught on how to oppress a larger group of people with a smaller group of people. This is an important distinction. Those particular gods they worship, yes, are they around in places? Absolutely. They are running in the background. You would call them the Anunnaki. But with this, it is mainly the humans that are self-farming, very much like gold offerings were made to the gods. This is actually going on. This is why your Kabbalist families acquire wealth. They're acquiring and essentially saving them for their overlords. In this, though, they have passed down the methods of oppression that are currently going on with your food, and the chemicals that are put in the foods are designed to make you stupid and slow and fat and slow. You must relearn what your ancestors knew. You must return to contact with the earth. You must return to contact with spirit. They're attempting to sever your connection to benevolent source creator and your soul, essentially your oversoul, which is impossible. But he says they are severing your connection and your, not necessarily connection, but your receptivity to it, getting you on a photocopy of that with your binary network or a fake flower of life or tree of life, when you're actually connected to the exoderal tree or the timelines and also nature as well. This is an important distinction. is essentially your phones, your towers, your computers generating this. Eventually, a cleaner form of technology will come about, but you have to basically fight to get this. Essentially, you must bring this up. You must understand this. Now, nature, this is also a must. It is also to communicate with us, even though we're all around, obviously, or I wouldn't be channeling. You can come out into nature and have a great receptivity with what you call the benevolent Earth Mother and yourself and nature. Listen to the birds, listen to the trees, listen to mountains, streams, water, all of this. It will all tell you a tale of both hardship and peace. This is where I can go into questions.
Yeah, so between the hardship and peace, now I feel like we're in unpeaceful times as we've ever been. And
Mhm.
especially with the rising cost of food prices. And, I feel like there's beginning to be a broader gap between healthy foods and unhealthy foods. So, what are some tactics, that people can do to get the brain chip culture other than just avoiding the foods? It's easier said than done to just avoid them. What are some tactics people can do to get back on the right path?
Yes, as he has pointed out on numerous times, it's everywhere. That's not always true. Yes, eat more cleanly, as cleanly as you can, even though the GMOs are out there. The suggestions that I would make is, you would say alternate. Your brain cannot unhinge from the toxins in a night, not even in a fortnight, which is 2 weeks. You would have to pace this. Some people want to go cold turkey. I'm never going to touch this again.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But at the same time, can your brain, your mind detach from this? Also, if you go into whatever your passion is in life, can you distract yourself from an addictive quality like this? Yes, in theory. If you get into your moment of what he calls non-time, can you do this and be at peace in nature and all this? Yes. But know that your society is heavily addicted to society currently. Are some things cold turkey based? Yes, like he said with the Diet Coke. Absolutely all day long, even though his brain has still never completely let it go. Why? Because this was not done in increments, in millimeters and centimeters. Your body has accumulated these toxins over a period of time, and have they turned up the volume on these? Absolutely so. But one way, of course, get rid of it altogether and have it just completely gone, then you can't take it, can't consume it. But the options you are that are available to you now is pace it. Don't always completely get rid of immediately unless it's some really refined sugar. Yes, we completely recommend it all day long, but it doesn't mean that within moderation that you can't snack on something every now and again, but then find alternative versions of these. And I don't mean rice cakes, Isaac. Thank you. I'm talking about like some things that people have made safer. There are safe versions out there. There's one or two pharmaceuticals out there that are safe, but you have to pace it and make it so that the switch over is seamless or as close to seamless as possible over to the other, or your body, your gut will rip you if you do too much of one thing. Your mind will rip you if you do too little of one thing. Balance in all things. This is the suggestion I can give.
Okay. So I have one more, and this is kind of a weird one. But if things continue to go the way they are and the world doesn't implode on itself, if we continue to support these corporate monsters, corporations, what do you think their future looks like? Some of these corporations.
All things have the propensity to fail. All things. There's no one that is too big to fail, and no toilet that everyone can circle around forever. There are laws of nature out there that prohibit this, where people automatically will revolt against something that is out of balance, out of whack. This is an energetic concept. Think of your Daredevil and Punisher for a minute. He likes to say where an energy came about, and since your criminals were operating with impunity, where they would always get out of jail, two people come about, like your Daredevil and Punisher, come about and either bring them to the law, true justice, easier, or outright kill them. In this instance, I wouldn't say the latter, but all things come about to where these corporations are not too big to fail. People will demand something separate from them after a while as a form of nature's balance, let's just say, or kind of a balance of your own inner nature and inner being. People always say great awakening, but that's not exactly what I'm getting at. It is more of a balancing of energies. If those corporations continue on this same footing, they are destined to fail because of the fact that it is just about reaching your what you call critical mass to more and more people. Notice this. There are figures then put in place energetically that also brings about what, no matter what their agenda is, what their families are doing, like your RFK, he's coming forward. I'm not saying hero or villain in any respect. I'm saying energies are bringing these different concepts about to where these corporations are having that wheel come around. Some people call this karma, but I wouldn't go that far. It is more or less a changing of the guard energy-wise, a cycle that has coming to a completion, coming to a head. With any oppressive force, with any large force like this, you cannot milk the resources, you cannot be a weight or a burden on those energies without those energies bursting, without it coming to a critical mass to where the oppression to oppressor ratio is stable. It is not a real form of balance, it is an affront to nature. So in this instance, your corporate oppression is ready to burst. And I'm not saying capitalism ends. It ends up in the hands of the people. And then out there in the galaxy, when you're in contact with galactics, you will have a galactic trade going on. This is what you want. You desperately want this. So in this instance, these corporations just know that there's nothing out there that is too big to fail, especially when it comes to becoming a blight on the landscape as far as toxins go. Now, if they correct these things, they will integrate properly. If they do not, it is essentially a collapse and a rebirth.
Very good information. I like that.
Yes, thank you.
Sounds like we need to make a movie.
Yes, and that is correct. If anyone out there wishes to, fine. Just remember the forest people told you. So, any further questions?
I think that's exactly what I wanted to know.
In this, yes, I now greet you in the language of my people. Analam means calm. So, analam always means calm, always. In all of this, no matter what you run into, the calm state is the center and also the grounding by which then you can proceed forward in any respect. So, we thank you.
Thank you. That was cool.
Yes, if I could describe him, he looks, he's a larger forest person. In fact, I have a statue back here that would show pretty much what he looks like. He looks like that. I made this one out of a statue I molded. This looks like sedimentary rock. There's another one by the name of Telnorskus that uses this. The joke was that they said he was older than dirt, so the energies made it so it looked like sedimentary rock, like that, so that was the joke, there. Segron is actually younger than Telnorskus. Telnorskus is up in the hundreds of thousands of years. Segron is about 20,000. So that's how old the Anakam lines are. They knock them, and then you have the Sasquatch that we all know are the descendant lineages of those. So some of them were ET, like Telnorskus was one of them that came from space. So like the Pleiades area of space. And travelers, like we said before, created colonies, and some are descendant lineages. And all cultures on this planet are essentially descendant lineages of those that seeded Earth. If you watch, I can't remember the South Park episode's name where they said Earth was a reality show, and
Earth.
Yeah, one culture, that one guy that was the pooping taco that was in the
yeah, I'll never forget that one.
Yeah, and he says one culture, one people of all one planet kind of thing, and that happens to be true. When you said on Conspiracy Sector a while back, when you said South Park was right, that's what the episode that was being referred to in that other article you were reading. That's the name of the episode. But
Hmm.
yeah, I refer back to that because that's another disclosure series. So Trey Parker, Matt Stone, you put something true in the series in that area. But along with the creators of SpongeBob, you did that good too. And Simpsons, Courage the Cowardly Dog. There's a bunch of them that I could go through. But
Yeah, the writer just died of Courage the Cowardly Dog.
yeah, yeah, and he just passed away, and I believe the writer, original creator of SpongeBob, did recently as well. I think so.
Huh.
Not that long ago, within about a couple of years, I believe.
Crazy.
But with this, some people think it's related to the some of the disclosure that was put in there. The writer of Dragon Ball Z passed away as well. So the creator of Dragon Ball Z, and it was because he was depicting heroes defeating evil like aquatic reptilian forms and stuff like that. And he was basically showing people how to do that. And he died like a month or two after that happened. But basically in terms that people could understand. So that's why the forest people were coming through with this. We talk to them quite often. So they usually have their own show, the World of Sasquatch, but they've never done anything on conspiracy sector before. So I thought that was
That
pretty.
was cool.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have anything else, Aubrey, before we take it out.
No, once again, we appreciate everybody for joining us. I know it's been a bit. We just once again had chaotic times, as everyone, and we're happy to talk to you again. We hope you learned something from this episode, and you guys stay healthy, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. And now you are now exiting the conspiracy sector. So bye bye, everybody.
Adios.